start off today a little bit Mad Lib style. Would you fill in some blanks here? I've been a coach since blank, and I specifically help who with what kind of problems so that they can arrive at what kind of solutions.
Well, since I'm old, I have to lift my glasses because I wrote this down. I've been a coach since 2008. Now that feels forever. And I specifically help singles with learning the foundational skills and mindsets so they can get into relationships that actually work.
There it is.
There it is.
It really is a mindset. I want to highlight that because I've known you for a long time. Kira and I go way back. We were in masterminds together. We have been, I know, we've been all over Voxer, like back and forth, like, what do we do about this? You know, going back and collaborating on like strategizing on how to solve different business problems, things like that. But I actually really do think it's a mindset. And I'm kind of curious to hear more of, because we were talking right before I hit record about kind of a general pessimism that's happened in the dating landscape lately. And I wonder if you describe some of that pessimism and what you're seeing. And then I'd love for us to talk about how we don't want people to stay there. Like, you got to get out of that. If you're in the dating scene and you are feeling very pessimistic, you got to get out of that. So Kira, what are you noticing?
I'm noticing a lot of things, but it's interesting because now that I've been doing this forever, when we met, I was in my first couple of years. That's how long ago it was. And I was still figuring out who I was as a coach, who I was as a person. And what I've realized over the years, where I think that we're stuck in 2024, is the fact that most of us really don't understand modern relationships. We're dating like our parents did. Even if we're online, we're kind of still going in with those same expectations, yet we want different relationships than our parents had, right? We want partnerships. We want both people participating, both people working, both people doing things, and we have no idea how to date to get it. So what I've seen is a general, honest lack of knowledge and information and about healthy relationships, healthy dating, how to get in them. And between that, so everybody's just frustrated out there. Everybody doesn't know what they're doing. Everybody doesn't really know what they're looking for. And then I think online dating, honestly, is a part of this conversation that has burned us out. I think I actually just did a 5-part series on my podcast about why I dislike online dating and why I think it's hurting more than helping at this point. But we just can't shop for a mate. That's not the way it goes. You know, you've been in a relationship for a long time. You knew me when I was single. And I actually have always quoted you on a couple of things about relationships that I loved you.
I don't think I knew that. All right.
Yes. Right? Years ago that you shared with me about your relationship with Andy and your husband. And your husband, like you're at a throuple. Andy, your husband.
No throuple for me. One relationship is all I can manage. And and we're going on 19. We just hit 19 years together this past March. So almost 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I've gotten into a relationship since I have known Kate. I've gotten married since I've known Kate even. And my understanding even of relationships and what they take versus what I thought they took when I was single, two very different things. So I think a lot of us are dating very naively, very innocently, meaning we haven't really dug into who we are, what we personally need, and then what that looks like in another person. So we're just going on these dates that are virtually interviews, not feeling any kind of connection and going, ugh, next. And I just don't think that's the way that love works.
Yeah. All right. Well, then how does love work? Because
is this the 2-hour podcast or
all day, actually? No, because one of the things that I like what you've just shared makes me think of is like I can't help but go to, okay, what were the things that I thought when I was first dating that would make for a successful relationship and what has turned out to be different? You've mentioned the same thing for you with, you know, being single, dating, getting married. And I would say one of the biggest things that I feel very lucky around was that my husband and I both believed in hiring help to navigate conflict, hiring a coach or a counselor to navigate conflict. I have met so many people where they don't believe in those things. Unfortunately, in heterosexual relationships in particular, my observation has been that it's often the woman dragging the man to therapy to do some work, and and then like feeling like the man isn't really fully participating. And there's a whole, I'm not trying to hate on men. There's a whole host of reasons for that. One of which is that culturally, men are not often encouraged to explore their own feelings. And at the same time, at a certain point, it's like, well, if your marriage is on the brink, you might want to figure it the fuck out. like get going, right? You might want to put everything you have into figuring that out. At least that's me. I just feel really lucky that my husband was from the get-go like, yeah, therapy is a normal part of trying to like just become a better person and evolve your life. So,
Absolutely.
all right, now I'm curious about your take on that, actually.
That's exactly what I quote you on. Actually, when I say I quote you from something from like, I want to say 2013 at this point, literally that long ago. And one of the things that you've always said that I thought was stunning was that you and Andy had a rule that if stuff was coming up, both of you get into therapy. No questions about it. That is a relationship value that you guys have that I think many relationships don't have or don't talk about early on. Because when we talk about what's going on, what's not working, I just think that we don't even understand love. Imagine that we're all looking for love and most of us all have a different idea of love. I mean, that's how simple or kind of, just broken down that I take this now. What is love? And a lot of people believe we fall in love and we stay in love forever. That's not true. That's a theory that we have been perpetuating through romance novels and movies and TV shows for years. And what I truly believe is you build a healthy relationship where love keeps showing up every day. And if you don't know how to build a healthy relationship, and if you can't get into a healthy relationship with another person, love's not sticking around. And then when you said, we go to therapy right away, the actual statistic on that is most couples go to therapy 6 years too late. 6 years. That's 6 months. 6 years too late.
And most give up in under 5 sessions. I heard that too.
Yep. And how do we continue relationships that we are not even willing to say, hey, let's invite somebody else in to clear this, help us clear this up, to help us tweak it. We have such shame around needing support with this. We have such shame with needing support around dating, needing support around relationships. The thing is that the relationships we want have never existed in history. Zero. They have not. For years, women couldn't even have their own bank account until the 70s, as a reminder to everybody, until the 70s. So what we want now is different. And we are dating, not dating in a way to get it. So, I mean, I work at everything from what is love, how to build that healthy relationships, how to date from day one with boundaries, sharing your values, being authentic. I think that women through society have been taught that we have to bend over backwards and manipulate somebody almost to fall in love with us. And then somewhere we get to maybe eke out some of our not so great stuff. How is that building a relationship? I am so proud because, you were kind of around in the beginning, but I'm so proud of what Danny and I have built. We're almost 10 years in at this point. And people, I talk about him regularly. He comes on my podcast sometimes and people are like, where's my Danny? And I'm like, that's the wrong question. The question is, how do I create this with another imperfect person who's got stuff, who's got baggage? Because that's who you're dating. Not some perfect person in the obsessive honeymoon phase where we just think everything's going to be perfect and work out. That's not true. Love doesn't conquer all. I wish it did. Gosh, I'd be a billionaire if I could help people, conquer all with love. But really, your relationship has to work on a pretty high functioning level for it to feel good on a daily basis. And so that is really what I help people on, are these mindsets and these skills that we never learned. Never in 3rd grade did we learn how to set a boundary. In high school, we didn't learn how to create connection and be vulnerable with people in a healthy way. Like, we didn't learn any of these skills, but they are game changers in relationships. You know that. You talk about all of these things too, right? So that's really what I do. And that's not what I started doing at all.
Yeah, I wanted to get into that because that was one of the questions I had, because I know that a lot of times new coaches in particular, but just in general, there's this sort of feeling of like, I can't launch myself or get myself out there as a coach until I have my brand and my name of my package and and it just is like, I feel like I'm always telling people in CLCC, Courageous Living Coach certification, like, nope, that's not how it works. You actually can like change it up later. It's not going to crucify your brand, but they get really worried about that. And then based on how long we've been in each other's orbit, I know that, you know, your core focus has remained the same, but your business has evolved. You've rebranded, you've changed some names. I'm wondering if you would tell us about that process and some lessons you've learned along the way.
Absolutely. Well, and I will say that there's no sexy story about why I chose dating or love. It's literally because when I decided to become a coach, and the conversation in my coaching program, which was nowhere as near as good as Kate's, by the way, but Kate's was not around back then. But the conversation was, what do you want to talk about every day? What would excite you to wake up in the morning and coach somebody on? And to me, I was like, love. Love is this kind of, we see this as this almost mystical, magical thing. And I was like, I would love to talk about love every day. It's fascinating to me why some relationships work, why some don't, why some people get stuck in dating and some don't, you know, and that was the start. So I started actually as Madison's dating coach. I live in Madison, Wisconsin. I did things just very locally. And I realized kind of quickly that this area wasn't going to be big enough to really afford to have a business just in a smaller city. And so luckily that's when the internet was really kicking in. That's when everybody was going online. And so were businesses. And so I went from Madison's dating coach to League of Adventurous Singles now, which I think is a good brand name. And really the beginning of League of Adventurous Singles was not about dating. It was about how to be the best single possible. Yeah. That's what I wanted to teach. I was single at the time. I was mid-late 30s. And I was like, we don't have to sit in shame. We don't have to sit here and wonder, you know, why am I not being chosen? You can travel, you can see the world, you can better yourself, you can create community, and you can also get ready for a relationship if you want one, but you don't have to sit in misery as while you're single. Nobody wanted to pay me for that, Kate. Not one person.
What?
Nobody wanted to pay me for that because I created a membership. I created a group and said, let's talk about being single. And they're like, but let's talk about dating. Let's talk about how I get in a relationship. Let's talk about, and I was like, oh, this is not what my people are wanting. People don't want to know how to be a great single. People want to know how to get in a good relationship. So I went to work. I dug in. I did research. I actually got a certificate in positive psychology. And I fully understood, started digging into what a relationship is, what love is, how to date to actually get it. In the meantime, meeting my now husband and taking him in that process with me, which I knew he was a keeper when in the first couple of weeks of us dating, he's like, oh, if you want to talk about me on your podcast or in your blog, that's okay. Like that's a winner chicken dinner in my world, because I was like, I can, because that was a really great, I was learning things about myself and about dating and about love that was really helpful and has helped me in this business. And now after all of that, I'm reinventing dating because I realize that my beliefs are not out there, but not the regular conversation. The regular conversation is ghosting. The regular conversation is what to text somebody. None of that matters if you actually don't know how to date. If you don't know how to create a relationship with somebody. Mm-hmm. Everybody's like, where's my person? I'm like, there's not an island. Love Island is just a TV show. There's not an island where all the singles are hanging out. You're going to have to leave your house. You're going to have to talk to people, and you're going to have to know how to build something with someone. And if you don't know how to do that, it doesn't matter how many singles you meet. And that's the conversation that I wanted to have instead of what I see out there, which is just how to meet people.
Yeah.
You know, what to wear on a first date. And I'm like, doesn't matter. if you don't know how to set a boundary. Doesn't matter if you don't know how to let your walls down in a healthy way to let somebody in. Doesn't matter if you don't choose partners who know how to love you back.
Yeah.
All of these things are really, really important. And I see so much frustration over, I'm just looking at people going, you're choosing somebody who's just not ready for a relationship. And you are trying so hard to have a relationship with somebody who is telling you in every way, shape, or form, they are not ready. Man, all of this gets so much easier when we just meet somebody who's willing to, exactly as Andy said, if we need to go to therapy, let's go to therapy. Let's talk it out. Let's figure it out. Let's commit to and believe enough in each other and in this relationship to put some time and energy into it. And the thing that we believe about love is that we shouldn't have to do that, because if it's love, it'll just work out. And that's bullshit.
Oh,
that's an absolute lie.
Not true.
That anybody who has been in a long-term successful relationship knows.
Yeah.
You know,
it's such an interesting time that we are in, because I feel like, along with the very necessary understanding of boundaries and all of that, unfortunately, like, I think it's like a pendulum, and we're really in a part of the pendulum right now that is like willing to cut someone off for like nothing. Like, I just see a lot of judgment, a lot of like, things of that nature. And I think when I look at the dating scene, I think that there's this balance that needs to happen, because I know my other, I guess the anecdote I relay most often is about having a partner willing to do the work. But the other anecdote that I'll relay that I remember feeling a lot when I was dating was just this really ruthless commitment to, you must be this tall to ride this ride. And when I talk about that with clients who are exploring dating, it's like, the reason there's a height and weight requirement when you go to the fairgrounds or the amusement park is not because people want to pick on those who are a certain size or a certain height or whatever. It's because the physics of, velocity and speed and force all coming together. If you are not the right height or weight for the roller coaster, you will get thrown from it. It's actually dangerous. Right. And at least to me, I always kind of felt like when I was on the dating scene, it was very, you must be this tall to ride this ride. Like, if you're going to give me the speech about how, like, can we just keep things casual? Do we have to define it right now? Well, first of all, sir, I did not ask you to put a ring on my finger. I asked you to just like keep it in your pants with other people and like, let's get to know one another, which is right. If you can't tell that those are two very different things, then you are not tall enough to ride this ride, which of course that metaphor can, be a totally raunchy metaphor as well. I'm aware. It's been pointed out.
I was like, who's the ride in this situation?
Who's the rider and the ridey? What rider are we talking about? All right. We can't go that direction with the content here. But the other thing going on too, though, I think, is this kind of this sort of, I'm going to ghost you, you're toxic, this immediate application of a label. And that's really unfortunate, because that's the other, like, yes, you need to have boundaries and go, you must be this tall to ride this ride, but you also need to have conflict management skills. My favorite book about that of late is Conflict is Not Abuse by Sarah Schulman. It's like,
interesting.
Like the accusation that someone is abusive, problematic, toxic, just because they have a different idea of what's going on. Maybe it's true that they are all those things, but let's at least have enough conflict management skills to be able to have the conversation, is kind of where I fall. Anyway, I kind of dumped all that your way. Curious reflections, thoughts.
But I want to talk about what you just said that I think is a newer problem that we don't talk about enough, which is called the paradox of choice. And that's actually a book by Barry Schwartz. And the concept is just this: when we have so many options, we feel overwhelmed. A lot of times we shut down and then we don't choose anything. And even if we do choose something, we're not happy with that choice. So to me, that's what online dating has done. One of the things is that it's given us all of these choices. So we never really go all the way in. We never really commit. We never understand that new relationships are going to be uncomfortable and there's going to be uncomfortable moments. And so people are just kind of checking out, whether they're doing so politely or through ghosting, but nobody's actually digging in to see if this relationship has legs, or very few are. And that is a major problem because we just believe, well, if not this person, then the next person. But I'll tell you, that's a rough game to play, because you can wake up 3, 5, 6, 7, 8 years later going, oh crap, now my doctors told me I need to giddy up if I want to have kids, or all of these different things. And it's a little different than it is for men, but it's still a problem that we think that someone's just going to choose us or love's just going to come to us. No, we have to be active. We have to be out there. We have to be talking to people. We have to know what we're doing if we want good consequences. We want to be a doctor. We have to go to school. You have to practice. You have to put in years and years and years of work to be able to do that. But when it comes to love, we're all like, well, I just know stuff, and that's enough. And I'm just going to challenge people that if you're not in a relationship that you want, if it's not at the level you want it, there is work that you can do, period, to make it better, whether you're single, whether you're in a relationship. And like I said, I think we have a lot of shame around that. I think we feel weird about that. And I would love to take and normalize that, because I think that adult relationships, two totally different people coming together, is hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. And that honeymoon period, which is one of the 5 stages, is going to wear away. That power struggle is going to come in like a wrecking ball. And if you don't know how to work through that conflict, just like you said, and not blame your partner, not fight so that no one is ever winning, then this never gets good. And people get frustrated, they leave, they cheat, and they just think the next person's going to be better. But this is just the nature of relationships, and we have to learn how to be in them well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I just want to be really transparent to anyone listening to this. I did not have those skills. Like they are skills you absolutely can learn through working with someone like you, Kira. They are absolutely skills that you can learn. I did not have them. I would not say I would say my husband didn't have them. I was more of the one who was like, I'm going to say when I'm pissed off, and like, here's what my analysis of what I think is wrong. But my mentality at the time was very, so now I've told you, so you need to fix it. And then he was in more of that people pleaser dynamic of, okay, now she's told me the things that are wrong. I really don't like the tone she's taking with me. She seems pretty angry. I don't want it to get worse. And I'm a people pleaser. So let me try to fix it as best I can. And both of us needed skills in that area.
Right.
And it's a really common dynamic, actually. So
it is. And I mean, the exciting and empowering thing is we can learn these skills. I will even say, as I mentioned, I have ADHD, my coaching skills through the year, who I was as a coach in the beginning versus who I am now, completely different person. I am quieter. I am stronger. I am, there is a grace that comes, I think, with doing something for so long that I did not have in the beginning. And I think that that's things that we don't talk about when it comes to coaching, when it comes to anything in life. There is a learning curve. There is going to be tough times. There is going to be ebb and flow with relationships, with businesses, with coaching, with everything. And so I'm super proud of the coach that I have turned into. But I didn't start off that way at all. I've had to learn things and take other courses and things like that throughout the years to continue to build those skills. But I'm glad that I stuck with dating and love, because I'm obsessed with it. I am absolutely obsessed with it. But I also am glad that I've been able to ebb and flow throughout the years to work with what I believe, and as I change as a person. It's impossible to think that a business or a coaching business won't change as we change.
Right. Right. Well, let's have that as our last question of the podcast for today. So what's something you wish you knew about running a business, being a coach, all of that, when you started, that you have learned through this ebb and flow trajectory?
I've got 3 words, because I could talk about this forever, but I kept it to some really simple things. Balance. I am still learning balance. in this business. Balance meaning realizing that if I'm not taking care of myself, this business isn't going. That if I don't prioritize myself, like my self-work, my health, my everything, everything stops.
Mhm.
And I think that, when I started this, I was 35 when I started this, and I was driven and ambitious and I was like, more, 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 more. And there was a point in my 40s where my body was like, nope,
Mhm.
that's just not going to happen anymore. And I had to look at the schedule, like how I was spending my days and add in more balance of there's just times I put my computer and my phone away. And that didn't happen in the beginning of my business, because when it's your livelihood, you can justify working all the time.
Yep. There's always
Second,
a new idea. There's always a new thing you could pursue or you could learn. Yes, I'm so glad you're highlighting that, because it really is something that I think newer coaches will often get discouraged by, because they'll think I just need to work really, really hard for the first year. And it's like, no, you need to work really, really hard every year. So you'd better put those structures in place where you have that capacity to close the laptop and do some self-care.
absolutely. And I don't know if I think that there's parts of this business that would have moved forward faster if I would have learned that, because I just kept burning myself out. And then I
Mhm.
would be exhausted and, have to just take a couple of weeks off because I couldn't even think straight, because I'd be working, 10, 12 or more hours a day on my computer all day, every day, pitching and proposing and updating my website and the social media and everything else. And it can become all encompassing. And probably the best thing about having a relationship is it's forced me to also go, that's just as, if not more important than this business. And I have to tend to that too. It
Right.
forced me to kind of get out of it a little bit. The next thing is boundaries. I compare it to dating a lot, that when I'm an anxious attacher, I'm sure you don't talk about attachment styles, but I'm an anxious attacher, which it sounds like maybe Andy is in your relationship somewhat too,
Oh no,
of
he's
just,
very securely attached.
oh, good.
I'm the more I'm probably the more on the anxious spectrum with
Well,
him.
I'm guessing you guys are earned secure at this point, right? Like,
Yeah.
to me, you guys are probably as well as Danny is. I identify in dating as anxious. He identifies as avoidant. But as an anxious, I see it even show up in my business, where I just want to win people over. I'll do whatever, in the beginning. Okay, what, you need this or you need more of this, even though you didn't pay for that. Okay, because I want to impress you, or I want you to like me, or I want you to think I'm good at what I do. And once again, that led to burnout, resentment, and a lot of different things that are not helpful in having a business and having to show up as a coach, right? You
Mhm.
can't show up as a coach and truly be present for a person if you're steaming in the back of your head about something that happened earlier in the day.
Yeah.
So just getting boundaries throughout the years of just, this is what I'm willing to do and this is not what I'm willing to do, and being able to say no to people. And I know that sounds so simple, but it's super hard when people are paying you and you need rent. So that's something that's been so important to me. Like, just yesterday, I said no to somebody, and man, I'll tell you, I need a client right now, but I said no because it was not the right match. I was like, I think at the end of this, you will not be happy with what we do. So this is not a good match for either of us. So I'm going to say no. And I would have never done that in the beginning of my business, because I just wanted to help everybody and just, it's just, and I needed money. And I realize now that sanity and integrity are way more important. I'll figure
Absolutely.
out the money piece. And then the final thing is community. I miss our mastermind, and it's something that I need to do more now, which is just having that community of people who resonate, who get this. Having your own business, a coaching business online, is a weird and little wacky world. And having people who can see you and understand that and relate to you is an absolute gift.
Yeah.
And so, and there have been multiple times in this 16 years of doing this where I'm like, I'm done, I'm out, forget it. And one of them was right before I joined that mastermind. I said, if nothing changes here, I'm lonely. I'm home all day by myself, trying to start this business. And so having that community shifted things for me. And I felt it just was able, it was just empowering, and it made me realize I wasn't crazy. I was just new at this, and I was learning. And so that was a really wonderful thing. And I think it's really important to find your community, because you will need somebody or people to just be there as a support system, because it's a gig.
Yeah. Yeah. Community is really, really huge. And I feel a lot of gratitude, same as you, for those early years with the mastermind. And I think it's something that, with our coach training, wanting to make sure that community is part of it. And I love seeing that people are like still getting together years later to do podcast episodes and things like that. But yeah, the community piece is huge. I am definitely an introvert, so I can dip into community like once a week and I'm like, "Oh, I'm good." But I definitely have worked with all kinds of coaches who are more like I love being home alone a lot. But like other coaches, I think what you're really speaking to is like knowing yourself. And this is where the parallel with dating happens, knowing yourself well enough to know what kind of environment you thrive in and what kind of conditions are going to make you thrive.
Absolutely. So for me, community was and continues to be really important, because otherwise I get caught up in my head and it can all feel a little wacky, and I'm just like, sometimes have to get stuff out like, does this make sense? And then they'll be like, yes, or no, that does not make sense.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, thank you.
All right. Well, I'm so grateful that you were here today, Kira. It's been awesome to catch up with you, and just love all the insights that you've been sharing. So thank you for stopping by. And where should people be going to find out more about the one, the only Kira Sabin?
Reinventingdating.com. So I have the Reinventing Dating podcast, which is a weekly podcast. And it's good. It teaches a lot of those foundational skills and mindsets. I feel like it's a conversation that we're not having a lot of places. So check it out, and reinventingdating.com. And then, yeah, the podcast is there too. But all the information of knowing what I do and how to work with me is right there.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Kira.
Thank you.